Welcome everyone to Wrasslin Raw!
You're listening to Wrasslin Raw, the podcast that takes you back to when the new generation took over the WWF. Thank you for joining us. You're here with Ryan Arico.
Yo, Mo. Tonight you're going to be welcome to the Castle of Coolness.
Joe Gimateo.
That's right. I am Joe. I've given up my barbaric ways.
Oh, man. Yeah, I can't wait to talk about that. I'm the one and only Jason Bartlett, and we're going to examine WWE history one episode of Raw at a time. But first, thank you, gentlemen, for covering for my just diseased, ptomaine poisoned ass last week.
It's the least we can do.
Did a pretty good job. I didn't think you wanted to hear me hacking and coughing up chunks on the microphone, so... Did a great job. Great job.
As long as all the ptomaine is gone, that's all that matters.
Yes, I am not lying in defeat now.
Toe jam in your tummy.
Yummy, yummy, yummy. And also a very special shout out to our listener in Tennessee that comes to us by way of Youngstown. You know who you are. This particular listener messaged us on Instagram, and thank you for reaching out. It was good reading your message there. It was good stuff. In this episode of Wrasslin Raw, we're going to be talking about the Raw that aired on August 7th, 1995. This Raw was recorded at the Louisville Gardens in Louisville, Kentucky, and features Vince McMahon and Jerry the King Lawler on commentary. Are you guys ready?
I'm ready.
Ready.
All right, then, let's get into it. Last week, on Monday Night Raw, in a seesaw matchup, some bullshittery happened, and the perceived victory that Razor Ramon had over Owen Hart was nullified by Earl Hebner. Just as a side note, because, I wasn't here last week, I had to mention Cornette was great in this. There are plenty of things that we could talk about if we wanted to rehash that last episode, but I wanted to make sure and get this point in. I loved Cornette as a manager in this, and we get another highlight of it here with Cornette freaking out over things. But time ran out. It was too late, and the match had to end. Speaking of champions, Diesel is going to be one-on-one with Sir Mo tonight. And by God, Sir Mo is on screen now, saying, "Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye, servants and wenches." Oh, boy. I loved that. I really did. And, as decent as Sir Mo's short promo in profile was, it's ruined by Diesel here, trying to be an intense, intimidating big man. And the intensity he tries to put out through his eyes just comes off to me as if he's holding back laughter. Before we move on, I just wanted to quickly ask you guys, do you get that feeling too? Whenever Diesel's trying to cut a serious, intimidating babyface promo, it really just comes across like he's trying not to bust up laughing.
No, I totally agree. I think I briefly mentioned it months and months ago. Yeah. When he gave one of his first promos that in that one that he almost looked like he was trying to, hold back from laughing, and it's continued. He always looks like that.
Yeah, it's just really uncomfortable looking. He's uncomfortable being a babyface.
Yeah. Yeah, it screams disingenuine to me. Well, from the entrance music there, we will go straight into our first match. Owen Hart and Yokozuna with Jim Cornette and Mr. Fuji defeat Razor Ramon and Savio Vega by pinfall to retain the WWF Tag Team Championship in 14 minutes and 25 seconds. My God. They must have hitched up a pacemaker car battery to fucking Yoko to keep him going for 14 minutes.
Iron lung.
Yeah. I had to note again at the beginning of this, and Joe, I know we tend to disagree on this. I just don't like Savio coming out to Razor's music. And the more that I thought about it while I was watching this, it's the same problem that I have actually with Owen Hart coming out to Yokozuna's music. Savio and Owen, they're both high energy. I love the high energy song, but in their demeanor, they're too high energy to be coming out to such laid back music. Both Razor and Yoko, their music is unique and very cool, but laid back for how much Savio and Owen bring to the ring with them.
I think one difference is, because I'm kind of the guy in between here. I don't weigh as heavy on either side of this on Savio's entrance, but the one thing I will give is that Owen Hart coming out to Yoko's music, he's still able to still the entrance. When he comes down to the ring, even though it's Yoko's music, he's the focal point.
Yeah. Yeah, I will absolutely agree with that. And that's kind of the thing with Savio is, Razor comes out and he's doing his, what would you call it, like a slow amble down to the ring, being very calm, cool, and collected as he should be.
Yeah, doing his suave strut to the ring.
But then you have Savio Vega jumping around like the fucking Tasmanian devil. He doesn't quite steal the show the way that Owen does, but it doesn't jive for me. It doesn't kind of sit right, I guess.
I could see it.
Well, you can tell that Owen Hart is not happy about this rematch at all. My God, he looks like he's ready to kill somebody, the look that he gives the camera as he's coming down the entryway. Correct me if I'm wrong here, guys. I might have missed it in last week's episode. I did watch it, but is this the first time that we get official word from Vince that Gorilla Monsoon has been named the interim president?
Yes, it's first I heard it.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Maybe on Superstars or something before that. But.
Yeah. So, honest question, and this is something that we've talked about a few times. Everybody that faces Yokozuna, why is everybody that takes on Yokozuna so surprised that you can't take Yoko down with any less than 3 clotheslines?
Hey, at least in this one, at least at the beginning, they switched it up a bit, and he actually caught Ramon on the 3rd one and slammed him. So
True.
They switched up the routine just a smidge.
True.
They're just not watching enough film, apparently.
Well, I immediately perked up when it came time to have Owen and Savio in the ring together. This is a matchup that works for me, brother. It did last time, but in this case, it ended up being a little bit lackluster. They traded some really decent-looking holds, I thought, but it didn't really go anywhere, except to tag Razor in against Owen. And then I got word, from ringside there that we were going to have Dean Douglas giving us a report card on this match later. Gotta admit, I got a little excited. And we'll talk about that here coming up. Something that I really, really liked was the double headbutt from Yoko and Owen on Razor. I don't know what it was about that, the timing maybe, but perfect. I also really liked the hard camera face-on view of Yokozuna spot calling to Owen and Razor in the ring, speaking to them directly in clear English that even I could read on his lips, so that was good to see. Once Yoko is in the ring with Razor, and here comes the Vulcan nerve pinch. The crowd energy comeback just doesn't feel like it works with the Vulcan nerve pinch. I'm not sure what exactly it is about it. But then, to contrast that, we get Razor in a sleeper hold that's applied by Owen Hart, and the crowd energy comeback on that. It felt like Razor was able to better sell the hold, and therefore better sell the comeback. I was engaged with the sleeper hold comeback, but just not with the Vulcan nerve pinch. It looked like Scott Hall was having a really hard time selling that. I really loved the crowd chanting USA for 2 guys that actually aren't American, one guy who's American but is supposed to be Japanese, and one guy who I presume is either an illegal immigrant or the son of one, that being Razor. Following a pair of hot tags, I still can't put over how much I've been impressed with Savio Vega. Up until now, I wasn't feeling the energy of this match at all. But once Savio comes in and starts lighting up Yoko, and then the standing sidekick to Owen, this is good shit, pal. That got me engaged for the first time in this match. But unfortunately, it didn't keep up. We got interference, then the pinfall, and then the rescue attempt afterwards. It all just felt slow and tired. Joe, what did you think of our opener and the successful defense of the tag team titles between 4 singles?
Well, as far as the entrance goes, let me ask you this. Entrance aside, do you think that you would be as into Savio Vega right now if not for this pairing?
Well, that's kind of a tricky question because they can be paired as friends, but not necessarily as a tag team, because what got me into Savio was his fucking marathon at the King of the Ring.
Right.
And
Same with
that was as a single, so...
Well, the reason I ask is because I actually have a note here later on in this match that Scott Hall he really kind of puts Savio Vega over in this match a little bit because he's the one getting the hot tag. Savio is.
Yeah.
So, that's one of my notes here near the end is that Scott Hall was really, he was putting his partner over in this match, which I like to see. That's really the only huge positive note that I have. I think this match was a lot of locks and holds. It was kind of the opposite of last week. Lots of locks and holds, and it was really the baby faces that were taking the beating early in this match, unlike last week. I don't know. I wasn't too impressed with it. I think Owen Hart and Razor Ramon kind of showed flashes a little bit. They would do that quick work like Owen Hart and the Bulldog did in their match a while back, but it was very sparingly. So, yeah, I think this match was kind of boring, unfortunately, especially compared to last week. But I did, like I said, I enjoyed Savio getting the hot tag this time. Scott Hall, from what I've heard in shoot interviews and stuff, he was known for putting guys over. And I think he's doing a pretty good job with Savio. I like Savio. I like his work. I'm sure I'll like it as a singles, but I think it's kind of helping that he's kind of teamed up here with Razor.
Yeah, Joe, I'm kind of in agreement with being a little bit disappointed in this match, especially after seeing last week, mostly because of stalling. This match had significantly more stalling than last week's match, which was right around the same time. There's some good work out of Razor and Savio and Owen and even Yoko, like you mentioned, Bartlett, later on, that one short time where Savio comes in and takes over and he lays a couple nice hits on Yoko and then the straight kick to Owen. Like, that whole series was fantastic. But, it started with towards middle of the match, Yoko does the nerve pinch, the Vulcan nerve pinch. And the first time they go to commercial and I say, okay, all right, we can go to commercial during a nerve pinch. That's fine. But almost immediately, Yoko goes back to the nerve pinch. Then we have Owen Hart in a sleeper hold for a while. Then after they come out of the sleeper hold, they collide and they're, laying on the mat for a little while. There was some good work out of almost everyone involved here, but the amount of stalling just really brought it down from last week. And, unfortunately, it seems like, what I kind of thought was going to happen from last week is that this would just not be able to live up to what we had, last week. And that's a shame.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really disagree with anything you guys have said here. Joe, I think you do have a great point about Razor putting over Savio here, which, it's the professional thing to do, absolutely. And I don't know that Razor is anything other than a professional in this time. So, I mean, that fits. But I don't know. I think that while this certainly doesn't hurt and it does absolutely help, I kind of want to say that I think Savio would have been all right getting himself over. He did a pretty good job of getting himself over already before this bastard tag team going on here. The one thing that I did want to mention to you guys, and I want to see if you've noticed it before or not, because this was the first time that I've noticed it. In all of the shoot interviews that I've watched, people talking about Yokozuna, and, it's one of those things that I've always had a hard time understanding. I guess he was a significantly different wrestler whenever he was a lot lighter before he came to the WWF.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that people always put over about him is, for a big man, and for somebody as big as he is, how fast he is getting up. And that's something that doesn't sound like it would be that big of a deal, but the more you think about it, it kind of is a little bit of a big deal, at least whenever you have somebody like, say, King Kong Bundy, who tends to kind of flail like a turtle on his back for a minute before he's able to get up. In this match, the times that Yoko was down on his back, he got up lightning fucking fast. And again, like I said, this is the first time I've ever noticed it. I'm sure it's been there the whole time, and I've just never seen it. But
and there was another really good spot where Savio drop kicks him, and he goes over the top rope.
Yeah,
and it looked great too. He landed on his feet.
Yeah. Maybe we just have higher expectations going back. Knowing that we know he was a big star back in the day, so maybe we just have these expectations, hearing all about how athletic he was for a big man and stuff.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think he's handicapped by this extra weight for sure.
Oh yeah.
How could he not be?
Yeah.
All right. Well, somebody whose opinion I'm looking forward to hearing here. The report card with Dean Douglas. Once again, I can't say how much I fucking hate the sound of nails on a chalkboard.
I've been muting it every time now.
I just take my headphones off. Yeah, I can't do
Yeah.
it. So, I'm sure you've noticed, but I have to admit that this is starting to grow on me. I love the way that Douglas delivers these lines. Last week, Sans Tusk, and then in this week's report card, therefore, definition, consider. Just the way that he delivers these in such a fucking pedantic and pedagogic manner. I mean, it's part of the gimmick, I know, but it's kind of starting to grow on me. Dean Douglas is going to give Razor and Savio a grade of 2 T's, standing for terrible twosome. I don't know why I like it so much, but I think it's because I like Shane Douglas and I don't want to see him treated this way, maybe. I don't know. After a quick commercial break, we come back to see that the king was visiting the dentist earlier today. That's Isaac Yankem, DDS, in case you didn't know. We're getting x-rays today, this poor son of a bitch in the chair here. This is just another way that they're really getting this over, as it's almost like a 50s B horror movie now.
Yeah.
The x-ray flashes. So, Isaac Yankem is pointing the x-ray gun at this poor bastard in the chair and flashing the x-ray gun. And every time he does, there is a superimposed, skeletal look to everybody there. It looks like it's almost cartoony, but it is not. It comes right up to that line. It was a visual effect that they added to this that really put this over for me. It took it from great to perfect. This could not have been any better. I'm getting really grossed out, though, by the constant close-ups of the diseased mouth. I get it.
An abscess.
I get it. It's the gimmick and it's irony and, all that, and that's fine. I'm not,
You're supposed to be grossed out by it, so it's working.
Yeah,
exactly. But I have to note that as somebody that is a bit generally disgusted by mouth things, this is just, ugh. Before we move along to our next segment, Joe, what did you think of this week's report card and our weekly visit to the dentist?
Well, I hate the report card. I'm on the opposite end here. I just don't. It doesn't work for me, brother. For me, as a wrestling thing, I don't get it. I feel like Shane Douglas could pull off a dickhead teacher on a sitcom, So it's sort of okay, it's working, but just for a wrestling thing, for me it's just stupid.
Looks like he'd be on Boy Meets World or something.
Mr. Feeney.
Right.
He's almost acting more like a sports broadcaster in this one than a professor, because he's got the TV screen going with the telestrating, circling the guys on the TV. So yeah, I'm not a fan of the Dean Douglas stuff right now. And Isaac Yankem, this to me was kind of I didn't dislike this, but this was probably the least interesting Yankem promo for me. And I don't know about you guys, but when I go to the dentist, there is always a guy sitting next to me in a wrestling singlet with a king jacket and crown.
Well, I walk right out of the office if there isn't.
That's what we pay insurance for. Come on.
Yeah. And the x-ray thing, it's he's electrocuting the patient. I don't know. That was kind of cheesy to me.
So the report card with Dean Douglas, I am 100% in Joe's corner. I absolutely hate this. It's terrible. It's terrible and boring. I don't have much to add more to what Joe said about it, because it's just, I don't like it at all. The only thing I've liked out of the 3 that we've seen is last week's Sans Tusk.
Sans Tusk, yeah.
That's it.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
But on the Isaac Yankem dentist office, I'm 100% in your corner, Bartlett, on this one. I thought this one was great. It seems like each one of these, we get a great line out of Yankem. This one, the open wide. That was great. And you said it was cheesy, but I loved the X-ray skeleton look.
Yeah,
it just, like you said, it reminded you of some like 50s horror. Like someone was going to come in and say, "Welcome, ghouls and boys," or something. I got a kick out of it. I thought it was humorous. I like
Svengoolie.
All right, so I am disgusted by the teeth. And as you both correctly pointed out, that's the point, right? We're supposed to be grossed out by the teeth. With Dean Douglas, are you not supposed to be pissed off and bored and reminded of the shittiest, most boring teacher you ever had?
Yeah, but sometimes when they're trying to force something, it makes sense and it works. And other times, if it makes you bored, especially in a program like wrestling, I don't think going for bored should be your goal.
Okay, well, I mean, you are right. It's just, I don't know. This doesn't bore me. That's the thing.
Well.
It does, but it doesn't. It becomes tedious a little bit, I guess. It doesn't bore me, but it does become tedious after a while.
The vocabulary words are tedious.
But for me, that's the same thing as the teeth. The tediousness of it is what's getting heat from me. You know what I mean? All right. Well, we'll agree to disagree on that. Maybe we'll come back. Maybe Dean Douglas will wow us.
Maybe he'll have a set of disgusting teeth, and then I'll like it.
Those disturbing chompers will take us into our next match. Fatu defeats Tony DeVito by pinfall in 2 minutes and 44 seconds. I was immediately pissed off that Vince refers to Fatu. Immediately. He refers to Fatu as previously part of the Head Shrinkers and that he has given up his savage ways.
Why even mention it at
exactly.
all,
yes.
I mean, that's one of those situations, just don't mention it.
Yeah.
Just move on.
Yeah.
Kayfabe was dead long before the Montreal Screwjob because Vince is murdering it right here with this shitty, ham-fisted switcheroo bullshit.
The Louisville Screwjob.
Yeah, the Louisville Screwjob. Yeah, if he would just not mention it ever again, that would be perfect. The biggest thing that I noticed from the get-go is how good of a jobber Tony DeVito is. He was almost outshining Fatu throughout this match here for me. Not that he had any kind of major offense going on. I mean, he tried a little bit here and there, but the selling. Tony DeVito was just, I really, really liked the way that he was selling all of Fatu's work here. I did like Fatu's little back and forth with the the kids at ringside there, getting their input and checking with them. It was kind of a pretty wholesome thing. It didn't really last long, but it was just one of those times where you've got a baby face, hamming it up for the kids. They loved it. So, honest question for you guys. What made that bulldog a Samoan bulldog?
I have the exact same thing.
Fatu hits Tony DeVito with a bulldog, and Vince calls it a Samoan bulldog. Okay. When Fatu starts dancing, instead of just fucking pinning the guy, which, I mean, I have my own issues with that, but Vince has a mini orgasm and yells, "Whoa, whoa, baby!" The splash wasn't bad to get the finish, but it didn't feel any more special than the rest of this match.
Or the Samoan bulldog.
Yes, no, Samoan bulldog.
Samoan splash.
Yeah. Ryan, what did you think about the new and improved Fatu in the ring?
Well, I'm happy Joe got his wish. You were just saying last week you were sick of seeing Fatu in just these promos, although we enjoyed them. We got him in his match here. And complete agreement with Tony DeVito. He's, of course, a former Jobber of the Week, and he looked it tonight.
Yeah.
He looked great in the ring. And really, these two guys just in general worked really well together. They matched up almost perfectly size-wise. Fatu, a little bit more muscle, but, same height and same body build, but very short. It's a jobber match, but I don't really have too much bad or a ton of good to say. It was just 2-minute match with a great jobber in there, but all in all, I thought it was a very solid introduction to the new Fatu. One thing that I did think was kind of interesting is even though it's a new Fatu, he retained the hard head capabilities of the head shrinkers, because there's one point where DeVito briefly takes over and slams his head into the turnbuckle, but he gives the head shake or the head shrinkers like shake of the head and, oh no, that didn't hurt, and then goes to work on DeVito. So he didn't lose everything from his savage ways, it appears. So yeah, I'm just going to end it with it was a very entertaining match between two guys that I thought worked really well together.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. Nothing real impressive, nothing terrible. I like the gimmick for this time period. I like Fatu, but I'm not sure I like the two together. I mean, this is the first match as this make a difference gimmick, so it's tough to tell, but this is a type of gimmick like, do positive things, make a difference, like a Hulk Hogan, John Cena type of thing, So I guess to make a difference and do positive things, you do that by beating the hell out of a guy in a wrestling ring and super kicking their head off.
Yeah.
Fatu he was acting like a little bit of a heel. I don't know if that's because he's just trying to act like a cool street guy, but it was kind of weird seeing him in this role. So we'll see what happens moving forward.
So whenever you say that, Joe, are you referring to the dancing? Like doing the dance thing that he does is kind of like rubbing salt in the wounds, kind of being a prick?
Kinda. I just got the vibe that he was sort of just acting like more of a heel than just like a good wrestler. You know what I mean?
Almost because showboating too much.
Yeah.
The excessive showboating,
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, fair points all. The only thing that I have to add is, Ryan, you mentioned about the hard-headedness, and I noticed that during the match, too, and all I could think of was, you don't do that to Lama Nama Numi. He'll come back with the coconut crunchers.
That's right. Lama Nama Numi.
So, we're going to move it along now to Supersize Stridex Pads. God, I'm going to tongue-tie myself on that one. Super Size Stridex Pads presents SummerSlam Insider.
Come on, Todd, you can do it.
Oh, God. Super Size Stridex Pads presents SummerSlam Insider. That's how, I guess that does work, yeah. So this whole super size, blah, 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 I guess this is how we're doing this for now. It's going to be there for a while, I can imagine. This is really kind of taking me back to Domino's last year. You guys remember that? Everything was all about Domino's delivering. Oh, yeah. Well, now we're going to clean up that fucking mess you made of your face with all that pizza, with all the Stridex. Petting Zoo's here, and he has decided to not go with whoever was dressing him before, and instead has a Wide World of Sports type suit. I don't even know what color that was, other than to say it's the same color as like a game show backdrop. To recap, Diesel will be taking on Mabel at SummerSlam. Petting Zoo makes it sound impressive that Diesel will be defending his title for a 6th time on pay-per-view this year. This is ignoring the fact that so far we've had 2 additional pay-per-views to really skew the numbers on that. And besides, isn't defending the title on a pay-per-view what's supposed to happen? Let's not act like that's special, because it's not.
Well, it should have been like 7, but we got that shitty tag team match at King of the Ring.
Right.
Very true. Very true. Speaking of shitty, let's cut to Sir Mo and King Mabel now for a promo. And I jest. Get it? Jest? King and Sir. Jester. Anyway. Once again, servants and wenches bow down to the king as Sir Mo continues to simp for Mabel. There's not a whole lot going on here. The promo isn't as impressive as a couple of the others. It's not bad either. But the whole servants and wenches line out of Mo, that works for me, brother. I don't know why, but I pop my ass off every time he fucking says it. We'll apparently have a ladder match between Razor Ramon and Shawn Michaels at SummerSlam for the Intercontinental title. I guess the rationale behind that is that the new interim president, Gorilla Monsoon, is out to give the fans what they want. And speaking of which, let's cut to Gorilla Monsoon, also in a matching flat pastel jacket a la Wide World of Sports. Monsoon makes some pretty bold statements, insisting that he can do whatever he wants as interim president without having to worry about politics, and therefore intends to give the fans what they want. You know, I have a hard time believing that, though, because apparently what the fans want is Alundra Blayze defending her title against Bertha Faye. Remember that whole feud from months ago? Well, Monsoon signed it. Thanks, Gorilla. We'll have Isaac Yankem, DDS, taking on Bret Hart, as well as The Undertaker taking on Kama, finally. And yes, let's go to The Undertaker and Paul Bearer for their thoughts on this. As per usual, this is gold. Paul Bearer never ever disappoints, and neither does The Undertaker. Next week, Jerry Lawler is going to be taking on Shawn Michaels, and we get another quick, glittery 5 seconds of Howard Finkel announcing Goldust before switching over to a view of the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase's face projected into the ring. And it just struck me what a contrast between the old and the new. The Goldust thing immediately followed by the 1980s Ted DiBiase music. Ryan, what did you think about everything we got out of the supersized Stride X Pad SummerSlam Insider segment?
Towards the beginning, we get the Mabel Sir Mo promo. You enjoy the wenches line where I really like Mabel, how he keeps referring to Diesel as Big Daddy Fool. I get a kick out of that one. And again, you know, Mabel does a perfectly fine job on the mic here. We learn the Intercontinental belt will be up for grabs. Shawn Michaels, Razor Ramon in a ladder match. I guess he's just replaced Sid. I think, Joe, you said a couple weeks ago in your news segment that Sid was suffering or trying to fight through an injury. It appears that he's not able to do that. And because of it, we're going to get this rematch, which I think we've heard before some refer to as better than the original ladder match out of these two. So that's something to look forward to for sure. Then we have a couple other matches that look pretty good. Not the Alundra Blayze Bertha Faye match. That one kind of drops the ball, but Bret Hart, Isaac Yankem, looking forward to that. And then, finally, The Undertaker versus Kama, which leads into another fantastic Paul Bearer Undertaker promo. Extremely short, but as always, they're great. I love seeing Paul Bearer's beautiful face when he gives us the two staples of a promo out of him. Oh, yes! And then the way that he gives that tilted look up to The Undertaker when it's his turn to talk, it's just beautiful. The Undertaker does a good job, talking about taking Kama's soul and whatnot. It's typical stuff, but it works.
Yeah, I don't have much to add here. I think that, the Gorilla Monsoon as interim president, I like Gorilla Monsoon in that role. The announcement of the ladder match just seems totally random to me. I feel like they could have maybe done something a little bit more creative than just saying, I'm Gorilla Monsoon and I feel like adding this match and taking Sid out. It just seems so random to me. They're usually a little bit more clever when it comes to injuries or anything else that changes a card. So, but that's pretty much it. That's, of course, Undertaker and Paul Bearer. It's great to see a promo from them. They're just true pros.
Yeah, and this reminded me of something that you had mentioned a while back, Joe, about having the president as that authority figure that can set matches, that can break matches, change them up like this. I'm already noticing a difference between Monsoon and Jack Tunney. And this is the first time we've seen Monsoon as, quote-unquote interim president. Jack Tunney was always more of a, we'll say, like a referee almost, really. I mean, he was trying to keep things moderately fair. The very few times we got to see him, we didn't really see him a whole lot, but he was always trying to be official. Whereas we have a president in Monsoon that is, well, I mean, first and foremost, he's a worker. He's a retired worker, but he's still a worker, and he knows about the story, and he knows about selling, and he knows how to get over this, what's essentially just a gimmick for him now of being the interim president. So I look forward to this kind of president more than I did Tunney, because it seems like they have a lot more room. And if I remember correctly, he does come into play quite a bit.
Oh, yeah.
Altering storylines, or, well, you know what I mean by that, quote unquote, altering stories. Mm-hmm. And so I'm really looking forward to Monsoon, but I do agree that the ladder match was just really random. Like, There's no lead up to that at all. Just all of a sudden, here you go. Well, the Supersized Stridic Pads SummerSlam Insider segment will take us into our next match. Kama, with the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase, defeats Troy Haste by submission in 1 minute and 24 seconds. And Troy Haste is our Jobber of the Week. Take it, Ryan.
Thank you, Jason. Troy Haste is this week's jobber. Troy Haste was born in Memphis, Tennessee, and used the ring names Phantom Sorrow and Troy Haste. Haste made his debut on May 7th, 1994, at an event in Central City, Kentucky, for the promotion Championship Wrestling America, defeating the tag team of Madman Pondo and Tommy Sledge with partner Jerry Faith. Haste then moved over to Jerry Jarrett and Jerry Lawler's promotion, the USWA, where Tony would finish out 1994 while holding the USWA tag team belts twice during his time there. In 1995, Haste made his WWF debut in this match we're covering today against Kama. His time, however, at the WWF would be short-lived, only having one more match with the Federation and a loss to Waylon Mercy just 2 days later on July 26th taping of WWF Superstars. Troy then ended up at Ohio Valley Wrestling for much of '96, where he would begin using the Phantom Sorrow name. And after 96, Haste spent the next couple years wrestling for small indie promotions in the South, mainly for Music City Wrestling, based out of Nashville, Tennessee, and Kentuckia Championship Wrestling, based out of Louisville, Kentucky. Troy's final match was on January 27th, 1998, losing to the tag team The Texas Connection with partner Jerry Faith. If you remember, Jerry was his partner in his very first match as well, so it's kind of nice to see two jobbers like this begin and finish their careers together. Troy Haste ended his wrestling career with 55 wins, 49 losses, and 2 draws, allowing Troy to squeak out a winning record. Way to go, Troy.
Hardly a jobber.
Yeah. So while that was all very interesting about Troy, I have to say that some of the names that you mentioned are some of the best names I've ever heard. Jerry Faith, who was some of the other ones?
Madman Pondo, Tommy Sledge, that was a good one.
Yeah,
they got some good names here.
Yeah.
The Texas Connection? That's a pretty good name for a tag team.
It is. And what's funny about the Texas Connection is everything I found made a point to know that nobody knows what their actual names of the two wrestlers were. So I don't know if they were masked or what the deal was, but it's just question marks on who played the Texas Connection.
I can only hope that their names were Dallas and Fort Worth. Well, back in the match. Thank you, Ryan. Enlightening as always. Very good. In case you were wondering, Monday Night Raw is brought to you tonight by Supersized Stridex Pads. Simple pimple control. The Sprockets couple are at ringside again. And let's begin ignoring the match to have Sid on the phone. Not much here. There's 1 minute and 24 of Kama pretty much just beating the shit out of Troy Haste. Here's where we learn that Monsoon apparently took Sid out of the ladder match against Shawn Michaels and put Razor Ramon in instead. I had to note, Troy Haste, he reminded me of a poor man's Rick Rude.
Ooh, yeah.
You guys see that?
I do, yeah, now that you say it.
Yeah, well, as I was realizing that, before you know it, Troy Haste is quickly and suddenly, you get it? Haste?
I am catching on, yeah.
Troy Haste is quickly and suddenly tapping out to an armbar in the ring while Sid is still speaking relatively coherently on the phone. That was probably the biggest takeaway of this match for me, is that Sid on the phone sounded the sanest he's ever sounded in the WWF in this run. Now that the match is over, we can hang up on Sid while Kama yells at Dieter and Klaus there at ringside. Joe, please, what did you think of this match?
Honestly, pretty disappointing. This is like the kind of shit you'd see on Superstars, you know?
Yeah.
The Sid on the phone the entire time, even when Kama was talking to the Sprockets people. I don't know. I wasn't really engaged in this match at all. And I think it was mostly because I was kind of trying to listen to Sid and also pay attention. And, I think it's the only part that was okay was him talking to the Sprockets people after, because only thinking maybe we'll see The Undertaker just randomly appear during one of these Kama matches within the next couple weeks.
Yeah, in kind of complete agreement here. This was a giant disappointment, and not because of the ring work. Kama did a perfectly good job of just manhandling this tiny Troy and compared to Kama. I mean, he was about a third the size of Kama. But what reminded you of it being on a Superstars is just the complete ignoring of this match. Talking to Sid the entire time. And, we've talked about it before that they like to do it in these jobber matches, but sometimes it's kind of unforgivable how bad it is. And this was one of those cases. When you get to the end of the match, they don't even announce it. Sid's just continuing the talk through the submission. Most of the time when that happens, like Vince will interrupt him for a second just to say, oh, well, blah and blah won the match, whatever. But no, Sid just continues the talk. After Sid gets done talking, there's still no acknowledgement as to what actually happened in this match. We just continue and we're done. Let's walk out. Kind of a disappointment in how bad they ignored this match.
Yeah, completely agreed on that. And Joe, I think you made a really good point with the whole Superstars thing. And I think that might be a new thing for me personally when judging some of these matches, because there have been quite a few matches over the 2 years that we've been doing this that appear on Raw that I've watched. And, I didn't have the words at the time. But in hindsight, those were total Superstars matches. What the fuck were they doing on Raw? Yeah, you're absolutely right. This was definitely one of them. And if you don't mind, I think I'm going to steal that and use it from now on, because it's probably the most appropriate way to describe this match. This was a fucking Superstars match. This didn't deserve to be on Raw at all.
Think about all of the Jobber of the Week segments and how many of those jobbers' careers ended on a taping of Superstars. Yeah. I mean, that's almost the last word out of my mouth in every jobber segment.
When it's not, committing suicide in a basement as a cripple somewhere.
Yeah, that does happen often.
Yeah, if you're going to have some random fucking phone interview that has nothing to do with the match, it would have been different if they would have had to, like, picture in picture.
Yeah.
Like Paul Bearer. Like, hey, let's talk to Paul Bearer and The Undertaker about Kama. That'd be a little bit different. But just talking to Sid on the phone, like, it has nothing to do with the match, and who cares?
Yeah. Especially considering, I mean, if we take it this way, the phone call with Sid lasted just a touch longer than this match, so we'll say the phone call with Sid lasted for a minute 30 even. A minute 30 could have been fit in anywhere else. It didn't have to be on top of this match.
Yeah, right.
Hell, they could have gotten rid of this match altogether and just did a phone call with Sid.
They could have worked it into that earlier segment when they talked about him, being replaced in the before the ladder match.
Yeah. Yeah, that would have been a good thing to mix in with Petting Zoo's Summerslam what the fuck ever report,
Yeah.
I'm not even going to try to say it anymore. But yeah, it's just...
The greasy face report.
Yeah. Total just... I don't know. I don't get how that's a good idea, but whatever. It's not the first time we've seen them do it, and it's not going to be the last time, so we'll just move it along. We're going to go back and forth with quotes from Jerry the King Lawler and Shawn Michaels, the Boy Toy and the Big Mouth, next week on Monday Night Raw. Just briefly, guys, Joe first, what do you think about this upcoming match between Shawn Michaels and Jerry Lawler, of all people?
Well, I'm going to pass on this, if you don't mind, because I kind of have some stuff to say at the end of the next match about it.
Okay.
I'm not exactly sure what Joe has to say at the end of the next match, but I also have something that I add at the end of that. But just as a foreshadowing, Michaels, time and time again, we've said, could pull good matches out of anyone, and Lawler's not terrible. So, it could be good.
Yeah.
I gotta say, you had me going there, Joe, but then Ryan...
Push it down. You
both have things to say. I'm working on a semi-solid over here.
Yeah, push it down.
Okay. Well, we might hear a thump here by the end of this, so you know. I don't have much to say about the whole thing, later on. So that being said, I will just put it out there that, Ryan, I agree. Shawn Michaels can get a good match out of a cinder block, and Jerry Lawler is significantly better than a cinder block. So
right.
I'm somewhat hopeful, but at the same time, I worry about a clash in styles here because Jerry Lawler is more old school. Shawn Michaels is more, let's call it, sacrificing himself for the business. Mm-hmm. Extreme moves, extreme sells, that kind of thing. I'm not sure how that's going to really pair up.
This is one of those classic, cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, good call there. Well, that little interlude to put over next week's match will take us into our final match of the night. Diesel defeats Sir Mo by pinfall in a non-title match in 8 minutes and 48 seconds. Understandably, there is not a lot of excitement for Sir Mo from people there in the crowd. But that's because the exciting things are happening at ringside, where we've got Barry fucking Dudensky, and what I thought was a pretty ugly shirt, covered in sayings from Shawn Michaels. Shawn takes up about a third of the shirt off to the side, and the rest of the shirt is covered in like sound bites, sound clips, shit that Shawn says.
Quotes of Shawn.
Yeah. We don't really spend too much time. I mean, it's a clever back and forth between Barry and the King there, but we can't really fuck around with that because we need to cue the gallop of Roseanne here. And Vince, we thought he was spent earlier, but Vince orgasms yet again with a, big diesel truck. What's funny about this is that they don't have any problems getting the pyro timing right when it's Diesel in the ring. But when it's Bam Bam Bigelow, we can't do that shit to save our lives. I liked Mo yelling, "Give me some room," at Diesel during the initial circling whenever they started the match. I don't know why, but I thought that was great. Just, give me some room. What a bitch. It was great. I've decided that Mo needs to lose quite a few pounds. He's...
Not as much as Mabel, but...
No, but still, I mean, Mo could have a pretty good wrestling physique. No, I'm not talking like a normal physique, but like a wrestling physique. Mo could be pretty good if he trimmed some pounds. He's got a little too much going around the midsection.
Yeah, you could have like a short, stocky, like a Chris Candido type of a look.
Mm-hmm. Or Rhino.
Yeah. So the first thing that I noted here that is a positive... I have to give Diesel and Mo both credit here. They are visibly trying. I mean, it's not the best. Both guys, I have issues with both of these guys in other matches, and that doesn't change anything here. But they are visibly trying to make this match work. So kudos to them. They got a participation trophy, I guess. Naturally, Mabel comes out, because we can't just have a normal match here. I mean, I know we are building towards I don't even want to talk about that, but what I do want to talk about is that Mabel's bright purple Oshkosh Begosh overalls look like a sports bra on him. That's more noteworthy here. Even the King needs some advanced support. Shawn Michaels isn't far behind Mabel, though, and suddenly I'm seeing the beginnings of yet another tag team feud. I hope I'm wrong. I really don't want to see, and, from my lips back in time to Gorilla Monsoon's ears, I don't want to see Diesel and Shawn Michaels versus Men on a Mission.
He's giving the fans what they want.
Yeah.
Something else I noticed about this, it's not really a negative or a positive, but I was really surprised at how much time Diesel spends laying on the mat in this match. He spent a lot of time on his back in this, and it was just kind of jarring. I mean, I don't know what else to say about it. What I was not surprised at is how much time Diesel wasted walking around the ring calling for the jackknife powerbomb. And nor was I surprised at just how goddamn ugly the jackknife on Mo looked. It looked fucking brutal, like maybe Mo should lose a few pounds so that Diesel can execute it in a little bit of a safer way. The ugly jackknife leads to the pinfall, which of course draws in Shawn Michaels and King Mabel to get something going in the ring. Mabel gets sent to the outside, and when Shawn attempts a flying splash over the top rope, Mabel catches him, but Shawn's momentum also carries Shawn and Mabel back into the Spanish announce table a little bit, kind of disheveling things there a little bit. Diesel comes outside after him. It's a whole big thing now, but Shawn Michaels has had his back hurt. And while they are separated and King Mabel and Mo go their way and Diesel is propping up Shawn Michaels, Michaels selling the back injury was great. I don't know what it was about it, but that was the most believable back injury I've seen in quite a while. And what was also great was Michaels going after Lawler at the very end there as we faded to black. So that's it. That's the end of the episode. Ryan, what did you think about our final match and the way that Raw ended tonight?
I'm kind of in agreement with you here in that Mo and Diesel were trying here. Even when it started, Mo had Diesel in the corner and he's trying to beat on Diesel, and it looks halfway decent. But sadly, that doesn't last too long. From that point, we do get some ugly moves out of both competitors here. And then when Mabel comes down, they just burn a whole bunch of time. And then we wait for Shawn Michaels to come down. You mentioned Diesel walking around calling for the jackknife, which is ugly. But they tried. This match could have been much, much worse than it was. And it's quite possible the match that we see against Mabel will be much, much worse. But this one was, it was okay for a Raw. It certainly wouldn't do for a pay-per-view, but one of the things hurting it the most is no one cares about Diesel as the champ. And I think that's something that hurts almost every match that he's in. Even if Kevin Nash, the wrestler, can pull off an okay match, it's always kind of spoiled by the fact that him being the champ is just boring, you know? Oh, and I don't want to forget about my thing at the very end. Yeah. Sorry. What I felt, how it ended with you were saying Shawn Michaels selling that back injury fantastically. And then Lawler, I loved him, heckling him there as he was injured. But I thought this does a good job of, one, we already talked about how they're good workers, Shawn Michaels and Lawler. So this match might be decent. But now we're adding an extra angle to make up for the fact that Michaels would surely be the heavy favorite in this match. But now we're doing something to just make it, well, maybe he will. If he's not 100%, maybe this veteran could pull one over on him.
Yeah. How long did you say this match was, Bartlett?
This match was 8 minutes and 48 seconds total.
Okay. So I'll split it into, 3 parts here. Number one, the terrible Shawn Michaels shirt that Barry was selling. Bartlett, I agree with you. I didn't like it. I don't even think he says that stuff. I was trying to read some of the stuff it said, and it was just like random shit that he doesn't even say. It was awful. The match, I'm not even going to be nice and say they tried. I thought it was the drizzling shits.
That's an acceptable answer.
Sir Mo is just such a fucking jobber, and Diesel looks stiff as hell with Sir Mo in the corners, especially in the corners. Man, and the fact that Vince is putting both Mo and Mabel into the main event picture is just insulting to everybody, and it's just not believable. It's not believable that Mo deserves this match.
No. It seems like it's out of nowhere.
To make it even less believable is Diesel squashes Bob Backlund in 8 seconds, but he takes him 8 minutes to beat Sir Mo. So that's what I think about the match. The stuff after the match, I agree with you guys. I think that Shawn Michaels did a really nice job here selling that injury. But what I have to say about Lawler versus Michaels next week is this is a really good way to end the show, to get us looking forward to that match. And I will repeat what I said last week. I like Jerry Lawler. This is probably the most interested I've been in anything with Jerry Lawler since we started this podcast. We got him with fucking Clowns Are Us, and then we got the Kiss My Foot, And then we get him with an evil dentist. And now we're just getting him just getting in Shawn Michaels' face. Just a normal feud between two legends in the business, Yeah. I'm not gushing, but I just like Lawler in this role, and I'm looking forward to the match.
Yeah, you know what? I am really glad you brought that up because I didn't even think about it before. I'm so used to the crazy shit like Clowns Are Us and the dentist and all that other stuff that honestly just went right over my head. You're absolutely right that this is, well, shit, this is how it used to be done before everybody was a fucking gimmick.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. That's a fantastic point. Yes.
Well, and it goes just like that fantastic spot, months ago when Bret Hart came down with Lawler. Same thing, just old school interview style, on each other, like just great stuff.
Yeah, good call on that.
Yeah, and Vince had to ruin it by bringing in an evil dentist gimmick to totally, set it up.
Which, by the way, the promos have been fun to watch, but yes.
Yeah. Yeah, as fun as the promos are, I don't think anybody out there listening to this is under any illusion that we approve of a dentist deciding to be a wrestler. Or I should say, before he was the world's greatest dentist, he was the world's greatest wrestler, and now he's apparently returning to the ring. But as entertaining as the dentist promos are, this is wrestling here with Shawn Michaels and Jerry Lawler. Excellent, excellent point, Joe. And also, great point about the ending of this, because that was something that I had thought of. We always bitch about why can't Raw go out on a high note? Well, this is about as high as it can get right now, right?
Yeah. I mean, we both talked about how we're now excited about this match because of how it ended. So
yeah, exactly. Yep, good stuff. While I'm lukewarm on this match, I'm not going to say that I hated it. I don't think it was the drizzling shits. Everybody did try. They put it in an honest effort. It's just that, okay, well, I'll just leave it at that. It was an honest effort, I guess. Compared to, I don't know, Bushwhackers or a tuxedo match, this is infinitely preferable. This was a hot ending for me. So, all that being said, again, we faded to black, so the night is over. Let's take it on over to highlights and lowlights. Joe, why don't you go first for this?
Well, I will continue my hatred for the fact that Mo is in this fucking match, and that's my lowlight. Just the match itself, the fact that Mo is getting this match. And my highlight is the ending of Raw. They are actually setting up for the main event next week, and I enjoyed it.
My highlight is I'm going with the new Fatu debut match against Tony DeVito, just because I thought this was just everything you ask for out of a jobber match. So it really impressed me. Both guys did a good job here, and I thought that was a fun match to watch. The low light, I'm going to go with the other jobber match with Kama. Only because, like Joe coined the phrase tonight, it was a superstar match, and that's what it felt like. And because of that, it felt like a real low light to me.
Well, good points, both of you. I'm going to kind of come up to you, but not quite agree. I had a hard time with this episode of Raw. There were no obvious highlights or lowlights for me here. I really had to sift through this to figure out what I was going to use.
It's a very lukewarm Raw.
Yeah, yes. For my lowlight, I ended up going with the opener, the Tag Team Championship match, because of the match last week. I thought, my dumb, naive ass thought like, oh, well, we got the heat going. We've got the kettle on the fucking stove and it's getting ready to boil, and we're going to tune in this week and we're going to see this shit whistle. It's going to be great. And then it was just womp, 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 womp. So that's going to be my low light. My highlight this week is close to yours, Ryan. This is nothing against Fatu. He did a perfectly fine job, but as far as just wrestling goes, and one of the things that I love about doing this podcast is seeing the jobbers that actually do great jobs, and in this case, Tony DeVito was he was a fantastic jobber for Fatu, so Tony DeVito specifically is going to be my highlight this week.
Nice.
Yeah, I had to give it to him because, man, he worked hard in that match. It was a short match, but God damn it, Tony worked hard.
He was earning his paycheck.
Yep, all $25 of it. So, that being said, Joseph, do you have contemporary wrestling news from on and around August 7th, 1995 for us?
Yes, a big topic of this particular episode of Raw is the fact that the Intercontinental Championship match has been changed, taking Sid out and putting Razor Ramon in. And Dave Meltzer is claiming the change for that match at SummerSlam is threefold. Number one, the show on paper looks worse than King of the Ring. The pay-per-view buys for In Your House 2 actually dropped 20% from the previous two shows, and it's believed that it was due to the negative reaction from the King of the Ring show. Number two, Sid is just a very poor wrestler right now. Dave Meltzer went into more detail, but Sid has had his chances, and he hasn't looked good, and I think we would all agree with that.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I would say that there's a significant amount to be said about the booking here on Sid, too.
Sure, but, I mean, getting into the title picture right away, the heavyweight title, now the Intercontinental title for no reason, I don't know. Number three, the company wants Shawn Michaels to go into SummerSlam with a match that everyone can expect to be great. So apparently the injury really has nothing to do with it. Meltzer's claiming that, the bone spurs in his neck aren't really anything too serious and that Sid's going to be back. It's just that he sucks
and he's
sucks. He sucks, and it seems like I do strongly feel that within the past few months, Vince knows that he's going to put the strap on Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania, and this is kind of like the build-up. He kind of wants Shawn Michaels to be put on a pedestal here, and it makes sense. But that's the word on the street in the Observer about the change in that match. Another thing noted here is that the WWF has hired Bill Watts as a script writer. Dave Meltzer seems a little shocked by this because he thinks this is something that would have made sense maybe 10 years ago, but not so much now. I kind of compare it to like AEW hiring Jim Ross, like past his prime.
It's a perfect example because of how big of an influence he was to Jim Ross.
Yeah. He actually, Dave Meltzer calls Jim Ross his protege in this write-up.
There you go.
So, The last thing noted here is that Smoky Mountain Wrestling held its Super Bowl of Wrestling event on August 4th, 1995. And you guys know there's kind of a collaboration going between Jim Cornette and Vince McMahon here. So this event, I wanted to point out that it featured wrestlers like Brian Armstrong, who received a huge pop from the crowd recognizing him as the Roadie. So the Roadie is now with Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and he wrestled in a match against D'Lo Brown, a future WWF superstar.
And a former throne carrier.
Yeah. This event also featured future WWF stars such as the Headbangers.
Nice.
Al Snow and Dan Severn.
Wow.
Yes.
I mentioned the collaboration earlier because The Undertaker had a match on this show, as well as Shawn Michaels. The Undertaker pinned Unabomb, which is actually Glenn Jacobs. So we get a match between Mark Calloway, The Undertaker, and Glenn Jacobs in this show. And it's interesting because I watched some of those Undertaker documentaries. One of them was that Brothers of Destruction with Glenn Jacobs and The Undertaker, and they actually talked about this match. They talked about it, how they had some experience with each other prior to the Kane-Undertaker rivalry, which was pretty cool. And Shawn Michaels obviously was also victorious in his match. He wrestled against Buddy Landell in this event. And so I thought that was pretty cool, and that is all I have this week.
Yeah, very, very cool. I mean, there's a lot of good names going on there. I almost wish we could watch that.
Yeah, that seems like a really great episode.
I am a huge fan of Al Snow. Al Snow is one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. And Dan the Beast Severn's nothing to fucking sneeze at either.
No.
Yeah.
A true badass there.
Yes. And with such a gentle, lilting voice, too, if I remember correctly.
Always reminded me of just a jacked up, enormous Freddie Mercury.
Yes, with the mustache. But a Freddie Mercury that within 2 seconds could just stretch you into fucking pieces. So, Joe, you at the very beginning there with the whole Sid thing, I find that very, very interesting that Vince and his little circle are apparently self-aware enough to know that things have been shitty and that they need a big drawing match at SummerSlam. And they're self-aware enough to look at that and say, oh, well, Razor and Shawn Michaels in a ladder match, it's kind of unoriginal, but it worked really well once. It can work again. And, as we all know in hindsight, it does. But he's self-aware enough to determine that, and yet is still on this Diesel Mabel thing.
Well, is he self-aware, or is he just kind of making like knee-jerk reactions with, the company is struggling financially, and right. He's
kind of known for that as well.
Yeah,
quick knee-jerk reactions. Oh,
right.
People didn't like those 2 matches with against Sid. We need to get Sid out.
Yeah,
no, that's a good point too. Yeah,
changing the outcomes of matches like that day sometimes. That type of stuff.
All right. Well, illuminating as always. Thank you, Joseph. Very good news report tonight. And that's it, folks. We're done with this one. I want to thank you again for joining us. And if you like what we're doing here and want to connect with us, you can find us on every major social media and podcast subscription platform by searching up the handle Wrasslin Raw. That's WRASSLINRAW. While you're there, don't forget to click subscribe to get every episode of Wrasslin Raw coming to you every week. Give us a 5-star review and let your friends know about the fastest growing wrestling podcast in the world. Next week on Wrasslin Raw, we're going to take a look at the Raw that aired on August 14th, 1995, with matches featuring Donk the Clown, Jeff Hardy. Yeah, I thought you'd like that. Jeff Hardy, and many more. So, for Joe and Ryan, I'm Jason, and this has been Wrasslin Raw.